On a slightly positive note here, at least they've actually released those frontward wheels you've all been asking for. You just gotta buy them first. Alright, welcome back everybody. So today we're taking a look at this nice, lovely brand new patch notes that had dropped here. It's going to come with a bunch of brand new changes, which may or may not be good or bad. Let's go ahead and take a look at quite a few of them. Now, just a quick side note here, we're not going to be taking a look at the cross system here. I've already made a video about that, or I am making a video about that. I got the recording all done for it. So that'll be out at some time, probably before this. So just letting you know, we're not going to go over that just here, but yeah, you know how I'm probably going to feel about that. Either way, though, we'll go ahead and take a look at this. It's called the Slaughter Update. It's 12.90, a very fancy update here. So, of course, now we have this brand new temporary brawl here called Slaughter. It's essentially just a basic team deathmatch-esque mode here, similar to what you'd find on basically any sort of FPS game. You go in there, you shoot some people, you earn points, and whoever gets the most points wins, or gets to the cap first wins. Now, of course, it's going to go from September 3rd to the 19th, so it's not quite out yet. Currently, the Survivors Leagues is the temporary mode inside the game, so you just gotta wait for that to expire. On top of that, they've also removed things like one-shot mechanics from Lances and a Tusk build, so you don't have to worry about any sort of like kamikaze brother truckers coming in there and just shanking you for an instantaneous kill. None of that's going to be in there, so it's definitely going to help out. Which makes sense because a lot of people could really easily abuse that system there. Anyone with javelins could just go in there, kill 2 people, and that would generally earn you a lot of points real quickly. So it's good they got rid of that. They've also changed the self-destruction mechanic in that mode so that it can only be activated once weapons and the most movement parts are actually disabled here. So it's going to help you out a whole bunch here in that regard. They also have a certain items and weekly rewards associated with this. So we'll go ahead and see what that actually sort of gives you. I'm not quite sure what it is. They haven't really given you like a preview of the items or anything like that. It's unlikely they're going to give you like too much stuff here, but it'll be nice if they give you a little bit of something. On that, they do say they do give you badges for this mode here, but unfortunately the badges here are quite emaciated, only 40 to 80 badges. For completing these 2 modes is laughably small amounts of badges. I mean, I'm pretty sure, does any like challenge in this game even give you that little of badges here? Yeah, the Awakening is pretty much the only thing that gives you less badges, because everything else gives you a lot more. Wow. That is still not even remotely worth it, but cool, thank you for the opportunity there, Captain. On that, they've also introduced the Triad here, which is this nice, lovely, fancy pack here. I may go over it in some more depth later here, but it gives you a pretty interesting cabin here, plus a pretty dang cool-looking little test car here that it's kind of fun with. And the deluxe version also comes with the Shanghai, or what was this map called again? It was a very fancy one from the Syndicate faction. Oh yeah, the unique garage of the Syndicate. So yeah, it gives you that Syndicate garage from the previous stuff. But if you actually take a look at the items here that it gives you here, it does actually give you some pretty cool stuff here. So for first thing, you get the Dead Man's Cabin here, which reduces the weapon reload time depending on the number of weapons mounted. The bonus value is at 25% for 1, 15 for 2, 10 for 3, and then assume after 3, it's basically 0. So essentially, the less weapons that you have in your car, the better reload speed you have, and so the more damage you do, theoretically. So kind of an interesting pack. Definitely going to be geared towards those builds with very heavy-hitting weapons, and they don't have a lot of them. So it might be interesting for a lot of those people. I think that might affect something like the Kaiju, because I think that only has weapon reload and doesn't have down cooling or anything fancy like that. So let me take a look here. Yeah, so that makes sense. It makes for like the Kaiju or like dual Scorpion builds or dual Jukubo builds. On that, they also give you a power unit, which is something you can basically buy. Quasar, also something that you can buy. The only other unique part they have here is the claw part here, which is definitely pretty interesting in the sense that, for one, it faces forward and backwards here, so you're able to do like trike builds fairly easily. And that historically has not been something that you could easily do because you can only use, say, like a medium wheel, and then you have to do like a weird medium frame out here. So the fact now that you have this forward-mounted wheel here, super cool. And the wheel itself, actually being epic quality, does have a perk here. So after passing 120 meters in distance, up to 4 claw wheels receive a charge that increases the damage of energy weapons by 5% for 5 seconds. Losing a wheel temporarily disables energy weapons here. So it's kind of like a risk and reward-esque type of part here, in the sense that as long as you're able to keep your wheels going and you're moving around a whole bunch here, you can actually get extra damage here for your weapons here, which can be incredibly useful. Anyone here using things like Quasar, Synthesis, or anything fancy like that, they would definitely benefit from a system like this. Although, of course, it's going to benefit anything with a very high energy damage and only like one shot at a time here. So Quasar is going to be the natural like companion piece to this weapon here, but it can probably work on other things too. It would still see marginal damage increases for things like Pulsars or Quasars or Synthesis. And maybe even for the Scorpion too, but the issue is I don't have the money to afford testing on that. Thank you, Targem, for that promotional account. Out of that too, you also do get a couple other unique items here. You get the lamps, you get the paint, you get the parts here. So if you like that stuff, feel free to consider it, but a bit expensive for me. And again, you can always buy these parts on the auction house here on the marketplace for a decent chunk of change or pretty cheaply. They also have the budget version here, which is only $14, which again, I greatly appreciate that they're offering budget options for all the main parts here. So, good on them. That, passing the cross crowns up here. And they've also updated a bunch of these maps here, improving the lighting, improving the places where it could players get stuck here. So, great things on that. Environmental object improvement, always nice to have. They also changed it now. Nomads people, you can now get additional 2 twin blade wing parts here, which is kind of nice here. And players who already are level 15 will automatically get these parts, so yay on that. More parts is always more parts. Next, we get into the actual changes here that may or may not be impactful here. So first things first, Spitfire auto range reduced by 20% here. Okay, I do appreciate any nerfs to shotguns. I absolutely hate them with an iron passion. So if you can reduce them even further, fantastic. Although I really haven't noticed like Spitfire being too dominant in metas. Although I don't really particularly go down to like these sub 6k power scores, although things would be hyper prevalent. So let me know if you guys have actually seen a, decent change in meta there. Other than that, the machine gun has had its minimum spread motion increased by 66% here. So it's going to reduce its sniping potential with it by a decent chunk here. I guess it makes sense because those things are absolutely fantastic. The Sinus Zero is like the best like damage per power score ratio weapon that you can get right now. And it can snipe off extremely well. So in hover builds, this thing is a menace. So I guess it makes sense as to why it'd be nerfed. Small caliber cannon, the median physical size of the projectile has been increased by, or been reduced by 75% here. Interesting. More hit parts deep in the target structure with less probability of catching protruding parts here. So I guess this is to make it so this thing it doesn't necessarily as negatively affected by things like skirt armor. So people who put like those like blasting plates really far outside of their car, those would not be nearly as effective for something like this. You have to make a much more densely packed skirt armor here to block a median shot now, which, alright. Next to Quasar, now the size of the flying lightning ball increases with time. Okay, I'm actually curious if that actually increases the hitbox of that thing, or if it only just increases like the model size of it, which are two different things. Just because an item gets bigger in appearance does not mean its hitbox gets bigger. So even if it looks like the big-ass ball of lightning is going to hit you, it may not actually hit you. But it's good that happens too, because Quasar, I feel like it rarely ever gets utilized in any sort of high power score game or any game really. The flight time on it was always way too long, and it was always way too obvious too. So definitely something that's going to need to be improved. Next to Capcan, the mine durability has been reduced by 25%. That'll be quite nice. I've been noticing that when I've been going out and about with my Caucus build, a lot more mines have just been really resistant towards my damage. Like, I could shoot it for a decent chunk of time, but when someone's spamming 2 or 3 or 4 of them, it's really hard to move after a while. Next, we have the projectile speed for the Phoenix, increased by 35%. Alright, that'll make it excellent. People now can actually hit it more frequently. The issue is, though, is that the Phoenix is still a pretty crap weapon in terms of its damage and its ability to penetrate, so they're probably going to change its perk to really make it more useful or anything, but alright. Now, next, the shotgun, the Thunderbolt. Now to increase weapons damage, you need to drive 30 meters instead of 40. Okay, so they reduced the distance amount. But the perk increases the damage by 33% instead of 25%, so straight up damage increase. And the perk stacks up to 3 times instead of 4. Okay, so you can't charge up nearly as much here. And the damage itself is reduced by 8% overall here. Ooh, okay, so that's going to reduce its damage overall considerably here. And the perk now is going to be less likely to actually result in players just instantly stripping off a large chunk of weapons here. Because if you don't know, Thunderbolts get like 3 of those with a decent amount of radiators. Slap a chameleon on that bad boy and just go ram somebody. You can generally strip off like high HP cannons pretty quickly. Because you can do some pretty serious damage with that. And especially if you're dealing with any sort of low HP, like machine gun builds, it was a definite huge downside. So let's see if that actually changes it out here. If anything, if they really wanted to nerf Thunderbolt, reducing the effect of radiators or increasing the heat charge per shot, that would dramatically lower the DPS of the Thunderbolt. Next, we got the Yao Guai. Here, time before the drone starts attacking is reduced by 50% here, which is always great. That Yao Guai drone has been absolutely useless. I know it's meant to be like a low-risk, low-reward type weapon, but damn was it completely useless in the majority of circumstances. But, alright, cool. Grenade launcher, Thresher, ammunition increased by 35%. Okay, it's pretty nice. And the projectile speed increased by 13% here. Okay. So it's definitely going to make it more of a simpler weapon that you can just spam and try to coat the map nearly as much. I guarantee you that's what people try to use it as, similar to that of the Retro grenade launcher, in which people just kind of like arc that over walls and try to shoot it as many humanly times. And the projectile speed, too, is always going to be nice for weapons like that, because trying to lead with weapons with a very long travel time is just miserable. Next thing, the physical size of the projectile has been reduced by 75% here. Okay, so definitely going to be similar to that of the median change here, where it's going to be more likely to hit stuff deep inside the car, which I guess makes sense. Definitely going to make it a lot more useful here, because the main thing with the spike is that since it has no penetration to it whatsoever, the only thing it has is a minimal amount of damage, and the fact it can push around very light cars here. So it wasn't that, like, great of a weapon in the majority of circumstances. Next, the Omnibox. Reduce the effects of the max on acceleration on the car. Okay, so it should probably be able to accelerate a bit more. The power bonus from the perk is reduced from 50% to 20%. Ooh, interesting. So it's going to be able to haul a lot less, but it's probably going to be made up for the fact that it has it more innately. And now the switching mode between is 1.25 seconds instead of 1.75. Alright, not really much. It's like an extra half a second, but cool, thank you, man. Yep, so you're able to respond to situations better here and to reduce its effectiveness as a super maneuverable armored vehicle. Which is strange because I've never really seen the Omnibox used very highly or in competitive play at all. So the fact that they're reducing it like this suggests that it's actually strangely strong. Okay, cool. I guess we'll try it out. Next, the bonus damage from the perk for the Ghost Cabin is increased from 1.5 to 2.5%. Alright, that's good though, because not really a lot of people use the Ghost perk on the cabin. And actually, let me take a look at the perk to that Ghost Cabin here, because if I remember correctly, it only gives you like, what? A little bit of damage per second? Yeah, so it's 2.5 instead of like, what, the 1.5, 1 second? And it doesn't seem to have a cap either, so that's a kind of interesting there. I'll imagine that probably is actually effectively capped by the longest stealth module, which is the Chameleon here, which I believe is, what, 10 seconds? Yeah, it's 10 seconds. I think you can increase that up to 11 or 12. So at best you can have, like, what, 22, 26% extra damage if you stayed invisible the entire time. So, somewhat interesting. I still guarantee you no one's going to use that. But pair that with the Thunderbolt changes here that actually may result in a lot more Thunderbolt users actually doing a lot more damage. Next, the Cabin, the Aggressor. Now the charges accumulate for every 25 meters passed instead of 30. Not really much of a change there, but alright. The module Argus. Module's cooldown is now 14 seconds instead of 17 seconds before. Alright, so definitely going to help out with there. I mean, the thing is that the Argus's use case is very niche the majority of the time there. So I'm not quite sure if it's really going to change it a whole bunch here. If you don't know what it is, it's essentially this. It basically disables mines. So which is great for people who are dealing with mine-heavy teams, which I guess would more be like competitive, where you're dealing with like cap cans and any sort of explosive mines. But alright, cool, man, cool. Next we got the movement part, the Omni. So now the penalty movement for the part's power is 12% instead of 16% earlier. So that means you can put more of them on your car without seeing a huge dramatic decrease in acceleration and speed, which is good. I mean, considering that the Omni has it's very weird. It's like very staccato in the way it actually moves. It's very like abrupt and not very agile. So putting that in there is definitely going to help out a lot with that. I'm not sure if it's going to help though a whole bunch, but cool, why not? Make it a slightly bit more popular, especially for those who spent a lot of money on them. RIP. Auger, Meat Grinder. Now the penalty for move part is 28% instead of 35%, and it's improved its surface grip there, so that's great. The Auger, the Meat Grinder, has always been a very harsh and unforgiving weapon to utilize. Sure, a lot of people might seen marginal success with it doing weird sideways boat trains with them, but I believe those were nerfed and didn't become very meta for very long. So it's great to have that back on here. What I'd really like to see from the meat grinder is an increased DPS there, so that ramming builds are still not nearly as successful on them, but alright. Because I always thought the meat grinder was supposed to be like the antithesis to the ramming builds. Like, if you're going to ram a fucking meat grinder, it should have hurt. But it doesn't. Power score increased from 420 to 480. Blaze it. Actually, not really. But yeah, it looks like the hovers relatively too good at lower power scores, which is fine. To be fair, hovers do exceptionally well at any power scores, but at lower power scores, where cars don't have a very large durability, it definitely is a lot more pronounced. Next, the Toadfish of the size model has been reduced by 75%. Makes sense, because it's essentially the direct upgrade of the Spike, so same reasons. Pulsar blast radius from the perk now increases by 2.8 instead of 0.25 meters earlier. So, alright, cool. It's slightly larger radius here, and allowing people to actually utilize this blast radius more effectively, so they can actually, like, blow up next to a person and deal a significant amount of damage there. So it's definitely going to be a lot more forgiving to fire. So, good to see on that. Guarantee not too many people are going to be using that. Although strangely popular in Clan Wars. I'm not sure how it is nowadays. The pulse from the blast radius is reduced by 20% for the Thresher. Damage is now reduced by 10%. And now the bonus from the perk is 230% instead of 200 earlier. So that's going to help out a lot here. It's going to encourage people to use this as intended, as opposed to its like blunt force way where you just drive up to somebody, gauge them twice in a row, and strip all their weapons off. So it's great they reduced that a lot here. The Thresher used to be a menace, so hopefully this helps reduce that just a smidgen here. The reduction of damage and the impulse from the projectile explosion is intended to reduce the effectiveness of firing the Thresher from a close range. The damage has remained same when firing a distance of 30 to 40 meters. So again, Thresher was meant to be a very long-range weapon, but a lot of people were using it as just like blunt force. Here's like an overpowered shotgun. That's essentially what everyone was using it like. So good to see that too. It needed to happen. I'm not sure if this is going to reduce the effectiveness of this weapon as the main MVP in PvE modes and PvP, but if anything, it's a good step in the right direction, because fuck Threshers. My god, are they the bane of my existence. And now the cabin, the Mechanist, which is that train cabin, I believe. Let me just double check on that bad boy. I do love that train cabin though. But yep, it is a Mechanist there, which just increases the armor of your weapons by, you know, a certain percentage, 8% for every 1,000 points of HP you have. So now the cap's now at 25% instead of 8%, and increases by 8% for each spike instead of the 5% for each spike. So at 4,000 HP, you can get a lot of HP there. Really nice stuff. And it seems now that you can actually get this at only 3,000-ish HP instead of the last, what was it, like 40 or 4,000 HP you need to actually get this. So it's much more attainable for a lot of people, which is great. Because a lot of weapons need that little bit of extra durability bonus to them, especially those limited angle machine guns. These are going to be perfect for the Mechanist build like this. So I'm definitely going to be appreciative of that change there. Although I haven't really messed around with the cabin a whole bunch there, I'm still planning on leveling that. That'll be coming up here soon. Next, we also got the Scorpion here. The physical size of projectile has been reduced by 75%, so similar to that of the Toadfish and the Spike here, make it a bit more likely here to actually penetrate. Although the Scorpion already has penetration damage here, so I'm not really quite sure why they did it twice, but alright. Scorpion was already still a pretty strong weapon. I didn't know it was, you know, falling behind, but alright, cool. Why not? We also have a bunch of small minor changes down here. You can go ahead, pause it, take a look at them if you'd like. I'm not going to go over them in great detail because that's a lot of updates. We also have a brand new song here, which... I'm not going to play that at all because I might get copyrighted, but that's actually a pretty good song. Very Western themed there. I might start putting it into some of my videos now. Ooh, why not? So you guys can stop getting visually fatigued with all the songs I keep playing. But alright, I think that's pretty much everything here. A lot of changes to go through in this patch, so it's a very long video here. If you like what you see here, by all means, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy stuff here. Other than that, guys, I want to thank you all for joining this evening. If you enjoyed the patch, or if you have any comments about the patch, leave it down below. We'll go ahead and start a dialogue on that, guys. I want to thank you all for joining this evening, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.